I begin to I begin to
To begin with our reporting, this is Cedric James Joseph Siolabon and I am part of the Team A. And our topic for today is the intangible assets. And after this reporting, you will be able to define the intangible assets, state the recognition, and account for the initial and subsequent measurement of intangible assets. For the definition of an intangible assets, these are the identifiable non-monetary assets without a physical substance. So as we all know, the intangible assets are the assets that has no physical physical matters, and yes, it is very rare in accounting. I mean, in a government accounting, it is most commonly on the science department for the researchers. So for the essential elements of an intangible assets, first it must be identifiable. So how can you say that an intangible asset is identifiable? So it must have the capabilities of being separated. That means it might be divided from entity and sold, transferred, licensed, rented, or exchanged, either individually or together with a related contract. Also, it must arises from a binding agreements, that is the contractual or other legal rights. So for the second essential element of an intangible asset is control. So the entity has the ability to benefit from the intangible asset or prevent others from benefiting from it. So control of an intangible asset normally arises from the legal rights that are enforceable in a court of law, and you cannot enforce the use of control of a particular intangible asset if it is not registered. So for the third essential element of an intangible assets, there must be a future economic benefit or service potential. So from the word itself, a future economic benefit or a service potential, so that includes the revenue or the cost saving of the entity. So one of the most common example is the online system of the government entity. So this online system, it allows the citizen, both citizen and entity, to save time, and for the entity, it also lessen the expenses. It is a cost saving intangible asset. And some other examples are on our books: a softwares, patent, copyrights, franchises, motion picture films, and trademark or brand names. So these trademark or brand names, most common example are the logos. So these are the identity of the intangible assets. I mean the identity of the government entities. So that those are the intangible assets. Example is the logos.
I begin to I begin to
The first one is the initial measurement. An intangible asset is initially measured at cost. So ang question, unsa na ang mga cost nga naa sa intangible asset? To answer the question, ang cost is nakadepende kung giunsa nimo pag-acquire ang intangible asset. And today, I will discuss 5 modes of acquisition of intangible asset. The first one is the separate acquisition. Separate acquisition is gipalit nimo ang entities separately. If you can recall, nag-discuss akong kauban, essential elements of intangible assets, na-added ko is identifiability. And under it, na ay separable. Separable means you can sold or purchase the intangible asset. So the question is, how will you initially measure intangible asset ngayong gipalit separately? To answer that, you will measure it by purchase price plus directly attributable cost if na mga necessary cost nga imong gibayad for you to acquire the said intangible asset. The second one is acquisition as part of business combination. Example for that is si entity A decided to combine with entity B. Si entity A, example, mahimo siyang parent, iyang nakuha ang intangible asset kay na-appeal siya na-appeal siya dito sa entity B. Wala niya gipalit ang intangible asset, but nakuha niya ang intangible asset kay na-appeal siya sa pag-combine nila sa business. So, manang gitawag nga acquisition as part, kay na-appeal siya, wala kay gipalit niya separately. And to measure that, and to initially measure the intangible asset acquisition as part of business combination, you will initially measure it at fair value of intangible assets. And the third one is acquisition by government grant. So, naamang tayo mga intangible asset nga kailangan na itong i-istorya through government lang. Example, correct me if I'm wrong, the landing rights, kana bitaw mga kuan sa kanang padaungan sa mga kanang sa barko, and ang kana bitaw mga aeroplano, if sakto ko na siya kanang rights nga imong ginabayaran, dili ka pwede nga diretso ra ka mo daong dira. Kailangan nimo istoryahon ang government if you decided nga magkuan ka og kanang taungan. And the initial measurement of acquisition through government grant is fair value, because as I know nga fair value is kanang pinaka easy way for you to initially measure an asset. Pero if gihatag man ang intangible asset kay example kay government grant man siya, na magi possibility nga gihatag ang intangible asset, imo siyang ang na kay zero. Pero if naagid kay nabayaran nga gamay, that is the nominal cost plus the directly attributable cost nga imong nabayaran for you to acquire the said intangible asset. The fourth one is acquisition by exchange. Dari nga kuan nga acquisition is wala kay gibayaran but naa kay gi-exchange. Naay duha ka kuan ang acquisition by exchange which is commercial substance and without commercial substance. Commercial substance is example, ikaw ako and ako isa ka friend, nagbaylo mi, ang akong gibaylo sa iya is TV, and iya ang gibaylo sa ako is refrigerator. So, di ba, makuha nimo nga naa siya ka ng lahi sila og value, and ang kuan, ang without commercial substance, kay murag nagbaylo mo pero same ra siya og value. Example, nagbaylo mi sa akong friend sa TV, niya yung gibayluhan po sa ako TV, mo to siya nga, ang without, ay commercial substance, lahi siya ang value, and without, same ra sila og value mo naman kung ano na exchange pa man if same ra man sila og value. Ang commercial substance example is ako kanang I give up intangible asset for me to makuha na ko ang PPE sa isa ka business. So to measure the intangible assets and commercial substance is imo siyang i-measure initially at fair market value of the asset given up. dili na mo i-measure ang asset nga imong nadawatan, instead imong initially measure ang asset nga imong gibuy-an. With kuan naman, without commercial substance, imo siyang initially measured at kanang ang carrying amount sa asset nga imo gyapon gibuy-an, dili ang asset nga imong nadawatan. So imo siyang i-measure initially carrying amount of an asset given up. And the last one of the modes of acquisition is internally generated. For me, kay mo yung pinaka-unique nga modes of acquisition sa tanan nga akong i-discuss. Kay, ang kaning internally generated is ikaw mismo ang naghimo sa intangible asset. Kay, ikaw mismo ang nag-create or nag-produce, even nga bitaw wala kay nakita nga physical substance ani nga intangible asset. So imo siyang i-measure initially, add nimo ang mga directly attributable cost sa intangible. So the last one, modes of acquisition is internally generated. For me, internally generated is ang pinaka-unique nga modes of acquisition sa intangible assets. Kay ikaw mismo ang naghimo sa intangible asset, ikaw mismo ang nag-create or nag-produce sa intangible asset. Even nga wala ka gakita nga kuan bitaw nga physical substance sa asset. So, how will you initially measure intangible asset nga ikaw mismo naghimo? Imo siyang i-add tanan directly attributable cost sa asset. So, development, pwede rin mo siyang i-capitalize if na-meet nimo ang criteria. The first one is, before that, if dili na nimo ma-meet ang criteria, bisag isa lang na nga, dili nimo ma-meet ang criteria, dili nimo siya pwede i-capitalize. Dapat tanan criteria nga gihatag sa standard, dapat imong masunod for you to capitalize the intangible asset. So the first one criteria is technical feasibility of completing the intangible asset. So kabalo ka nga this one is kabalo bitaw ka nga naa kay mahimo gyud nga intangible asset gyud. Dahil ang second one is intention to complete the intangible asset. Bisan man good o kabalo ka nga naa kay mahimo nga ay feasible sa imo nga makita nimo nga naging intangible asset. If wala ka intention nga imong i-complete ang intangible asset, imo gyapon siya i-treat as expense. So, ang the third one is ability to use or sell the intangible asset. Kay bisan man good naa kay intention nga himong humanon ang intangible asset, if wala kay ability to sell or use the intangible asset, wala gyapon. And the second one is probable future economic benefits or service potential. So kani kailangan nimo siya makuan nga naagi future economic benefits kay usa pa tong mga developmental cost nga imong gikuan if walay future economic benefits nga makuha nimo sa intangible asset. Ang kaning fifth is availability of adequate resources needed to complete the development and to use or sell the intangible asset. So ang kaning ang fifth is dapat kabalo ka nga naay mga resources nga imong magamit for you to complete the development. Kay wala kay mga resources, dili kay po nimo ma-complete nimo ang intangible asset. Dili pa nimo siya pwede ibaligya or dili pwede magamit or dili po nimo siya pwede ibaligya. Kay wala mga resources for you to complete the intangible asset. And the last one is reliable measurement of the cost of the intangible asset. So kani is measurement. So dapat kabalo ka unsay mga cost nga imong nagamit, pila ang kuan para for you to measure para makapitalize nimo ang intangible asset. Again, di nimo siya pwede i-capitalize if wala nimo na-meet ang criteria. Bisag isa nga imong na-miss sa aning nga criteria, dili nimo pwede siya i-capitalize because according to standard, dapat tanan criteria para makapitalize ang kaning development cost is dapat imong ma-meet tanan. Last na. So the last one I will discuss is the subsequent measurement. So dali naman ni ang pag-measure sa intangible asset subsequently kay an intangible asset is subsequently measured at cost less any accumulated amortization and any accumulated impairment losses.
I begin to I begin to
It's so special. Next topic we are tackle about amortization. So definition amortization, it is an allocation of depreciable amount of the intangible asset over its useful life. So that is what we call amount of amortization.
I begin to I begin to
So in amortization, we have two classification. First is the indefinite life and the second is the finite life. In the indefinite life, it is a foreseeable limit of period, and in the finite life, it is a limited period benefit to the entity. So in amortization, we have two classification. First is the second is the residual method. It is
I begin to I begin to
in residual method, assumed to be zero expect if there is a third party. So that is the two method and how to calculate it.
Derecognition. Derecognition means removing an intangible asset from the company's balance sheet. This happens when, first, the asset is disposed or sold, given away, or discarded. Second, the companies didn't expect any future economic benefits from the intangible asset. Under recognition, the difference between the carrying amount and the net disposal proceeds, if any, is recognized as gain or loss, in surplus or deficit. Impairment. An intangible asset is impaired if its carrying amount exceeds its recoverable service amount or recoverable amount. At each reporting date, an entity shall assess whether this there are whether there is an indication that an intangible asset may be impaired. If such indications exist, the entity shall estimate the recoverable amount of the asset.
So we have illustration journal entries, the initial subsequent measurement. On January 1, 2000 X1, entity A requires computer software for a 1 million. The software useful life is 5 years. So we have journal entry, first month, computer software, debit 1 million, and cash modified disbursement system or MDS regular 1 million. And then the last year of the month, we have amortization, intangible assets, 200,000, and last month of the year, we have amortization, intangible assets of 200,000, and accumulated amortization, computer software where is 200,000. We divide the 1 million divide 5 years, that is why we get the 200,000 pesos. And then impairment journal entry on December 31, 2000 X1, entity A assesses an indication of impairment and estimates a recoverable amount of 700,000. So the journal entry last month of the year was impairment loss, intangible assets 100,000, and accumulated debit and credit, the accumulated impairment losses, computer software. We get the 100,000 because the 700k that is given minus the 800k. That is why because 800k we get the 1 million minus the 200,000, that is why we get the 800,000, and we deducted it with the 700k, which is a recoverable amount. That is why we get the 100,000 pesos of amount. Next, the journal entry of the recognition. On January 1, 2000 X2, entity A sells the computer software for 720,000 pesos. In first month of the year of 2000 X2, journal entry debit cash collecting officers 720,000, the which is the entity A sells computer software, and then accumulated amortization, computer software, which is recalculated in the previous problem, and then accumulated impairment losses computer, which is we calculated the impairment, this is 100,000, and then credit the computer software, which is the initial, the 1 million, the 1 million, the 1 million pesos, and then debit the gain on sales of intangible credit rather the gain on sales of intangible assets of 20,000 because there is a gain, because there is an allowance when we to make there is an allowance to the debit. That is why it is a 20,000 pesos.
I begin to I begin to
You're mine for sure.
I begin to. I begin to.
It's so special. Boy, how it feels when I'm with you. You got me doing things I never thought I'd do. Just so you know, ain't never let you go. You're mine, oh. Just so you know, you're mine for sure. Yeah. You're mine for sure. Yeah. Ooh, you're mine for sure.
I begin to. I begin to.